I used to have a hard time pronouncing this acronym, FLOC. Sometimes I think it sounds like flog, or can I say frog? Anyway, on a more serious note, this acronym sounds FLOC, and the full meaning is functional location. So I'm going to be taking you through understanding what FLOC is on a beginner's level. So let's go. I want to break functional location in two words: functional plus location. So this would enable us to have a proper definition of what functional location means. I like to define functional as the object, or can I say the asset, the object or the asset. The word location, we already know that when you hear the word location, we mean an area. Now, putting this broken functional location together, we have that FLOC, which is the functional location, simply put, means an area where the objects are installed. Let's look at more definitions. Take a look at the orange portion of my circle. I called it the SAP environment. And the highlighted shapes, I called it the assets. So the idea for FLOC creation basically is this: any asset which is maintainable physically, okay, should still be identified on the system as well. So I can actually summarize this by saying that my FLOC identifies these assets that are maintainable physically on the SAP environment by acting as an identifier. Yeah.
Very simple.
So, through the FLOC, by the time the FLOC has been created, I should be able to draw out maintenance records, because if my functional location is identifying the maintainable assets on the SAP environment, it means it's going to serve as an archive, more like an archive for every of our maintenance records, even the spare part collection histories. So everything concerning maintenance of that asset will be stored on that functional location. So when I say everything responsible for the maintenance, I mean down to the maintenance task list, down to the spare parts that are collected. When I have my functional location, I can pull out those data that I need through those functional location. Let's look at another definition. Now look at this other shape. Look at this other shape. We have our SAP environment, and we still have assets as well. And these individuals, these are people that are responsible for, let's assume anyway. So these are people that are responsible for the maintenance and the production as well. So what these guys do is this. What they do is they will work here on this environment, okay? So for the technicians, they are going to be carrying out maintenance on the machines. For the operators, that would make sure that they monitor their lines. So right there on this SAP environment, you can see that work is being done. So on the system, when we have these maintenance records, okay, it will only show us that work is being done. So we can say that the functional location is basically an area where work is done. So the big question: why and how do we create it? Let's take a look. There is a word called mask. There are two words I want us to look at. I want us to look at mask and structural indicator. No, you think that this is the mask I mean, but no, this is not the mask I mean. Okay, so the mask will tell you the format that your functional location that you want to create will follow. So it's more like series of footsteps that your functional location will have to follow. I want us to look at it like you're imagining a footstep. Okay, so it's like the steps or the format, not really steps anyway, but the format that your functional location will have to look like or will have to follow when you're creating it. Okay, now this particular mask is created using a structural indicator. When I started, I told us to put the word mask and structural indicator in our minds. So while the mask is the format that your functional location will have to appear or follow or look like, okay, the mask is created using a structural indicator. Not to worry, I'll explain what the structural indicator means. So when you hear the word structural indicator, we talk about two things. We talk about the coding templates and the hierarchy levels. I'll explain. The coding templates and the hierarchy levels, they both make up the structural indicator. Okay, so when you have the coding templates and you have your hierarchy levels, these two actually make up a structural indicator, and I will explain how for you. Now, what does this coding template do? What is a coding template? Why do I need a coding template? When you hear coding templates, what a coding template does is to help you to control the type of characters that you're going to use in creating your functional location for your business. So what it does is just to help you to control your characters that you would use in creating your functional location. And when we talk of the hierarchy level, what the hierarchy level does is to sort of define the levels that are in your structure. Okay, it tells you what each level means, how many levels that you have on your functional location. I am going to explain what these terms that I have described means using a very simple example. So stay tuned. In my example, Mr. Ben runs a factory. Mr. Ben has a factory, and let's assume that he runs a dairy factory. Okay, he produces dairies. Okay, and in the production of these dairies, okay, yeah, he has this factory, and he has buildings. Of course, for every factory, you definitely have to have your buildings. And in the buildings, he has 3 machines. He has machine A, machine B, and machine C, all doing activities. Machine A is known as the grinder. Of course, in the production of his dairies, he needs machines that would be part of the production, okay, or that would take sole responsibility of the production. So one of the machine is the grinder, and he has 2 grinders on different lines. Okay, so machine A is a grinder and machine B is a grinder. So he has 2 grinders and 1 cooler. So the cooler is also a machine that is also a part of the production. So in total, he has 3 machines because he has 2 grinders and 1 cooler. And all of these machines are responsible for his production. So we are going to explain. Now, out of these assets that he has, and when I say assets, I don't mean just the machines. I also mean the buildings, because of course the buildings are part of the assets. Okay, every particular equipment that is going to ensure the smooth runnings of these operations, including even down to his standing fans, his chillers, every single thing he has, they are all assets. But out of all these assets that he has in his factory, he needs to know which of these assets are relevant or are important for maintenance. And by the time he has identified these assets, he then goes further to map these assets out for maintenance. So it clearly means that you could have a lot of assets, but not all of these assets are actually mapped out for regular maintenance. Okay, so having mapped these assets out for maintenance, what he does is this: he then creates the functional location for these assets that are maintainable. Okay, now why does he need to create this functional location? Why does he need to create this functional location for these assets that are maintainable? Now, he needs to create this functional location because, of course, these assets over here, for his machines here, they have to have a sort of a maintenance task that has been apportioned for these machines to be maintained. Okay, and he also have to have a master data of all of these machines, and these master data, they have to be attached somewhere. Okay, so on SAP, for most of the spare parts that these machines will be using, we call them the bill of materials, which are the BOM, and they are often attached to the functional location. So if Mr. Ben doesn't create a functional location, then how does his bill of materials, which are the spares or the spares that these machines are using, so how are these spares going to be attached to the functional location? So it means they have to be a functional location for the attachment of these spares. Also, he has to be able to monitor the costs that have been spent on each of the FLOC. Okay, so if he doesn't have a functional location for these machines, how else will he be able to monitor the individual cost of these machines? So you can see that there are so many reasons why Mr. Ben has to create a functional location for his machines. One other reason why he also has to create this, like I mentioned earlier, he has to be able to have a record of all his maintenance activities. What are the records of his failures? In situations where Mr. Ben has failures of machine A, machine B, or machine C, or any other assets that he has, how can he be able to identify these machines? And even when these machines has also outlived their useful life, how can he be able to take them out of the system? So these are many reasons why Mr. Ben needs a functional location. Now, having understood this, let's create a functional location for Mr. Ben's machine, shall we? Before Mr. Ben creates his functional location, he has to define how he wants his structure to look like. And he does this using the structural indicator. Like I said before, when we tried to explain what structural indicator meant, I said it was a combination of the coding template and the hierarchy levels. So we had the coding template and the hierarchy level made up the structural indicator. Now, this is how your screen for SAP looks like. When you initiate to create functional location, this is exactly how it looks like. Now, before he goes ahead, he has to select a structural indicator, which is this place. This area is your structural indicator. So when you click it, you have series of structural indicators, and you're the one to select the type of structural indicator you want. At the right hand side, we can see the mask that I talked about, and we explained earlier that the mask gives us a format at which the functional location will be represented, or the format that will be followed in creation of the functional location. Okay, so one thing I want us to know is that these structural indicators, they can be customized based on our own organization. Now, before Mr. Ben will create this, like I said, he has to be able to know how his structure is going to look like. And in knowing how his structure is going to look like, he has to look at his organizational hierarchy. Okay, he looks at his plants, he looks at the departments within his plants, he checks if there are sub-departments in his plants, what are the machines in his plants. These are things he has to look at to know the particular extrastructural indicator that would suit his functional location. Alright, now like I said before, we have hierarchy levels on the structural indicator, and I told you that the hierarchy levels indicate the levels that are present on the structural indicator. So let's assume that Mr. Ben selects structure A as his structural indicator. Okay, so automatically this becomes his edit mask, because I said it is created from the structural indicator. So when he selects structure A, it comes here as it has his mask. Now the levels in this mask is the levels that are present in the mask. Now if we count it, we can see that this is level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. If he selected a different structural indicator with a different mask, okay, if probably the structural indicator that he selected had levels up to 5, we would see that there would still be an additional variable at this end. Okay, so let's quickly look at Mr. Ben's illustration. Okay, so let's assume that what Mr. Ben has customized as his structural indicator is what we have here. Like I said, either he selects what suits him from the list of structural indicator, or he creates an edit mask for himself. So it's possible that he can customize his structural indicator to suit his business organization. Okay, so let's assume that this is what he has selected for himself as the structural indicator. Okay, I explained previously that the structural indicator, it includes coding templates and the hierarchy level. So the next thing Mr. Ben will want to look at is his coding templates. And in the coding templates, here we are able to know which should be donated as a numeric character, or an alphabetic character, or an alphanumeric character. So let me explain. Whatever variable that Mr. Ben selects here at this first level, okay, has to be either an alphabetical character or a numeric character, or it could actually be combined. Okay, so whatever value that he selects here has to be a combination of both an alphabet or numerics. Now, anywhere we see this A, it means the alphabetic character. It means whatever Mr. Ben selects as his level 2 has to be an alphabetic character. At the level 3, we see letter N. And according to the coding template, letter N means the numeric character. It means that whatever Mr. Ben selects here will be just numbers. And when we look at this A again, at its level 4, it means that whatever he selects here has to be an alphabetic character. For level 5, it means that whatever he selects for his level 5 has to be a combination of either alphabets or numeric character. Now, when we look at the hierarchy level, we can count that this is level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5. Having satisfied this, Mr. Ben can now go ahead to create his functional location. So let's quickly create this for Mr. Ben. From the beginning, we can see that the first character is level 1, okay? And level 1 signifies the plant. So Mr. Ben would have to select a plant number for himself. Let's assume Mr. Ben selects 4231 as his plant number. In the previous video we had in planning plant, work centers, and planner group, I explained what the planning plant was and criteria at which you create your planning plant. So if you missed that video, I would advise you go back to watch the video so that you can be able to understand when we talk about the planning plant. Okay, so Mr. Ben has already created a plant from the very beginning, and what he created this plant as is 4231. And from our coding template, we can see that for level 1 is an alphanumeric character. So I could decide to put an alphabet there. I could decide to put a number there. Okay, so for Mr. Ben, when he created his plant, he denoted it as a numeric character. I hope we get that. So the next level is level 2. For level 2 is known as the operational area. And this is another very important area. Operational area is the particular area where this operation is being carried out. When we look at Mr. Ben's organizational flow, we can see that his operational area is dairies. Okay, his operational area is dairies. That is his operational area. If he had something else that he produced aside dairies, yes, it could be assumed that he has 2 operational areas, which means that he might need to create 2 functional locations. All right, so for dairies, it will fall under level 2. And according to the coding template, we can see that level 2 means alphabetic character. Okay, so I'm going to just take probably the first 3 or first 4 letter of his dairies. Okay, so I could put it this way. And we go to level 3. Now level 3 is known as the process line. Now this is a very important aspect. Okay, when we talk about the process line, in his particular factory, he produces dairies, and in the production of dairies, he has machines that are responsible for the production of dairies. Okay, so the process line just indicates the particular machine that is actually doing that particular operation. So if, for instance, from his flow we can see that he has grinders, and he has 2 grinders and 1 cooler. Okay, so now for this kind of thing, we're not going to use just one functional location to denote the 3 process lines. No, this simply means that I am going to have 3 functional locations, because we can't be able to have one functional location to denote these 3 machines. Like I earlier said, when we talked about the importance or the reason why Mr. Ben should have or create a functional location, one of the reasons I told all this is for us to be able to track the costs, and also to have maintenance histories, and also to create task lists for these machines. So if we have the same functional location created for these three, you would agree that these three machines, especially this particular cooler, it has separate spare parts as compared to the grinder. Okay, so I can't be able to use a functional location for my grinder for coolers, because cooler would have its own specific task list that has been apportioned to it, so that whenever we want to maintain, we can look at the task list and maintain. Also, cooler would also have different components that are embedded in it, which is going to be totally different from grinder. So it means that if we merge these two together, we will not be able to be having a good record. So tracking the records of these maintenance or replacements that are going to be done on this machine is going to be nearly impossible, because we are now going to have one functional location where you dump every of the maintenance history or all of your data. So it is seemingly impossible. Now someone could also tell me, yes, I have two grinders. I could have one functional location for these two grinders. The answer is no, because these two grinders are located in different lines. Okay, we have one grinder on one line and another grinder for another line. So it definitely has to have its own functional location. But I'm going to show us what is going to distinguish the functional location for this grinder from the functional location from this grinder. So the level 3 is the process line, which is the machine that is carrying out the operation, which is grinder. So on our coding template for level 3, we have it as N, which is the numeric character. So I want us to know that this particular structural indicator we selected was customized by Mr. Ben for his organization. Okay, there are some times that we might customize something to suit our organization and it might not actually have the same coding template. So based on whatever it is that is customized, our level 3 might not be a numeric character. Okay, our level 3 could decide to be an alphabetic character. So this is not cast on stone. It is based on what we have selected based on our business needs. So for Mr. Ben, for his level 3 is denoted as a numeric character. So I could just select a number. Okay, sometimes some of these machines come with unique numbers. Yeah, they come with unique numbers, and I would advise that we use those unique numbers to denote this particular process line, because one of the reasons why you should use unique number is this: for situations where you have similar machines but on different lines, something have to be able to distinguish them. And of course, original equipment manufacturers of these machines are smart enough to provide unique numbers for each of these machines. So there is no way in this universe that this particular grinder is going to be having the same unique number with this. That is what is going to distinguish them. Okay, so I assume that the unique number for grinder should be 677. Okay, so this is my process line. So my level 4, level 4 is the sub process. Okay, level 4 is the sub process, and I would explain what the sub process means to us. Now from this place you can see that I have two grinders. Okay, so when I have gotten my process line, which is my grinder, which we have donated as 677, I have another grinder, but this particular grinder is in a different line. So this is a sub process. So I could name this line 1, because when I want to create my functional location for grinder, which is my machine B, I would have to change this to line 2. So this is what is going to distinguish the functional location of this grinder from this grinder. Now the next is my level 5, which is the machine main group. Okay, this is the machine main group. It means that this is actually the machine. What is the particular machine doing the job? What is the main machine doing the job? Now in this case, the machine is a grinder. Okay, and for level 5, we see that it is denoted as X, which is an alphanumeric character. Okay, so I could decide to put my 677, okay, and I could take the first 4 letter of my grinder, which is this. Okay, so I could leave it this way. Okay, now we can see that our mask stops at level 5. There is a possibility that you could create a 6-level functional location. In situations where you want to create a 6-level functional location, the 6th level is always the equipment. If there is a sub machine or a sub equipment attached to this grinder, that would automatically become our level 6. And we can even have up to level 7. Level 7 is the component. Okay, sometimes we might want to have a particular maintenance for a particular component in the equipment. Okay, let's take for instance this grinder had another equipment attached to it. Maybe there was another equipment that possibly works in alignment with this grinder. In that situation, I could then have a level 6, which is a machine subgroup. Okay, and maybe in that particular equipment there is a particular component inside the equipment that we have to maintain. Maybe there have been a maintenance task that have been assigned for that particular component. In that situation, we could have a functional location up to level 7. So in the level 7 then becomes that particular component inside of the equipment. So all of this is based on how the whole process is. There are some processes that are not really that cumbersome that you might have up to level 7. There are some processes that you might have a particular machine and possibly a conveyor attached to that machine. Okay, that conveyor becomes, okay, let's take for instance this grinder had a conveyor attached directly to it. In that situation, we could then have a level 6. So I could then have level 6 can be an alphabet, okay, an alphabetic character. So I could have it like this. Okay, maybe I could stop here. I could have it this way. So if there was an equipment attached to the machine, it becomes my 6th level. Now, if in that particular equipment there are some components that requires some special maintenance, that becomes my level 7. So you can see that when it comes to the creation of functional location, it is based on how your whole process is. So based on how your whole process is, you could then define your structural indicator, because there are tons of masks, tons of formats that you can use to suit your business. So however your process is will determine what type of functional location you are going to create. So we are going to stop at level 5 because that is how Mr. Ben's process looks like. Okay, So let's confirm we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've successfully created a functional location for machine A. If we were to create a functional location for machine B, we are going to have it a bit similar, but some things are going to change. For instance, for level 3, I told us is the process line, and I explained to us that there is no way that the same machine is going to have the same unique number. Every equipment manufacturer gives the machines different unique number, even if those two machines have perfect resemblance. There has to be something to distinguish them. So let me say the unique number that the manufacturers gave machine B is 678. Okay, so this will change, and because this is at line 2, we cannot maintain line 1. Okay, so this changes line 2. Someone could ask me, what if we don't have 2 grinders? What if we have just 1 grinder? Just like our cooler, what if we have just 1? Then what becomes my level 4? Level 4 simply becomes 1 because you have just one of it. Okay, you have just one of it, so it becomes L01. If you had 2 of those machines, then it becomes L02. So at this point, we have successfully created 2 functional locations for machine A and machine B of Mr. Ben. I hope you enjoyed these tutorials. In our next video, we are going to watch out for how we create our bill of materials, what are our bill of our materials, and we're still going to talk more on the equipment and components in your functional location. Thank you.